We continue now at the top of Daf Samach from Meseches Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 69a. The Gemara continues its drasha Misha Yeshlo Almanus V'Gerishin Ba. The only times we say, let's say you have a situation of a Kohenes and she marries a Yisrael, and then she divorces or she becomes a widow, so then she goes back to her father's house and she gets truma. That's only true when you have marriages where there is widow and divorce, meaning where the kiddushin was chal, and that's how we learn out Yatsu Ovid Kochavim Ve'Evid. That comes to exclude. Let's say she has a relationship with a non-Jew or with an Eved, she'ein lo almonos v'gerish, and there is no widowship, there is no divorce. In other words, there's no marriage, there's no kiddushin in that case, and she is puzzled from truma, she's puzzled from kahuna, she's psula from kahuna in such a situation. And the Gemara continues, eshkechon kohenes, so we find that that's true by a kohenes. Again, this pasuk is only by a kohenes. Levia v'Yisraelis minol, and how do we know, let's say you have a Levia or a Yisraelis who's with an Ovid Kochavim or an Eved, how do you know that passes her from kahuna, passes her from truma, or in this case, really kahuna? And so the Gemara says, Kida Amar Rabbi Abba Amar Rav. It's just like Rabbi Abba said in the name of Rav, and this was quoted earlier as well. Bas ubas, he learns out from the extra vav in the word ubas. Hachanami here also, bas ubas. Over here also, you will learn out from the extra letter of in the word ubas, the extra vav. But the Gemara says, 1 second, Kaman Rabbi Akiva, if that was true, who does that follow? Does that only follow the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, the Darish Vave, who darshans the extra vavs? And the Gemara says, no, afilu tema rabbanon. You could even say that it is the rabbanon kula ubas kro yiseru. Again, this is also similar to what the Gemara said previously. The entire word ubas is actually an extra word, and we learn out from that word. Rashi over here says, eshkechon kohenes, the pasal lo eved. We find this by a kohenes, that an eved can pasal her. And finally, the Gemara says, kula ubas kro yiseru. The whole word ubas is extra. The chsiv bekrodil el minei ubas kohen. In the earlier pasuk, it already said ubas kohen. Umatzi lemech levav asrei v'chisi Mano Grusha, so it could have just continued without repeating the word ubas. Therefore, the entire word is extra for a drasha. But the Gemara continues, Ve'ema, but why don't we say to darshan as follows? Misha yejlo almanus v'gerishin ba. We should say, if you have a situation where the kiddushin is chal, where there's a marriage, so then we say, ki les lezera, if she has no children, so ka'achla, then she eats truma. In other words, the case is, let's say she leaves her husband either through divorcing or through becoming a widow. So then the halach is she returns to her father's household and she can have truma, but that's only true if she had no children from the non-Kohen that she married. But ki islay zera, lo achla, like we said, if she has children, she doesn't get to eat truma in such a situation. But then we should darshan as follows. Misha ein lo almanus v'gerishin ba. If you have a situation where she's with an eved or an ovid kochavim, where there is no real marriage and there is no real widow, there is no real divorcing, so there we should say on the contrary, the exact opposite. Afagav de islay zera, nami teichel. We should say even if she has children, maybe she can eat. Maybe we go the exact opposite direction. If she was with somebody where there really wasn't any halachic relationship, so then we should say she should always get to eat from the truma, even if she has children. As Rashi over here says, Afagav de islo zera teichel uchebehema bi'alma chashav, meaning the person that she's with, the eved, let's say, or the ovid kochavim that she's with, should just be considered like being with just like an animal, and therefore it should not count at all. And that's why even if she would have children, she should still get to eat truma. We should go the exact opposite direction. But the Gemara says that wouldn't make sense. Imkain, because if that's what you said, that this pasuk was coming as a leniency for her, so then Rebuye Levia v'Yisraelis Lamali. So what would be the point of including a Levia and Yisraelis in that? As Rashi over here says, Imkain dehai kro lekula ksiv. If this pasuk is coming as a leniency, ulashminan dezera de over kochavim ve'eved lo pasal, trying to teach us that when she has children with the eved and the over kochavim, and she returns to her father's house, doesn't pasal her. So Rebuye, when we're including Levia v'Yisraelis tichsibbe, why are we including Levia and Yisraelis? Lamali, what's the point of chasav ubas kroyasera? What's the point of that extra word ubas? Hashta kohenes gufa ashmin. And if we're already learning that by a kohenes, we've already taught the lo mivsala bezera ovid kochavim ve'eved, that she doesn't become possible by having children with an ovid kochavim and an eved. So Levia v'Yisraelis mi boy. So for sure, by a Levia and Yisraelis, she's not going to be possible with the ovid kochavim and the eved. And Rashi continues v'imisham lashmina. Now, if the purpose of this extra word in the pasuk is to teach us the Misha Yejlo Almanus V'Gerishin, that in a situation where there is marriage, Afilu Hachi Ki Isla Zera Minei, nevertheless, when she has a child with this person, Lo Seichol, she's not allowed to eat truma. V'tzdarech Lemeser Levia V'Yisraelis Ha'ochelis B'Truma B'Shvil B'Na Kohen. And what we're trying to say is, let's say you had a case of a Levia and Yisraelis who got to eat truma because she had a son who was a Kohen. That if she should go ahead and get married to a non-Kohen and have children with a non-Kohen, Lo Toshav l'truma b'misas bala, that you're trying to teach us this chiddush that she does not, like a chumrah, that she does not return to truma when her husband dies. That also hapshital, and that's obvious. The kaven to kohenes gufa mifsala b'zera Yisrael mitruma debei nasha, because if a kohenes, if she gets pasuled when she has a child from a Yisrael, from the truma of the house of her father, so kol shekin Yisraelis ocheles b'shvil b'nas, certainly that's true by Yisraelis, that eats because of her child, because of her son. Elavada ki rabbi kra levi of Yisraelis lahachi rabbi. Obviously, the real reason why we're including a Levi in Yisraelis is why? To tell us as follows: she mocheles b'shvil b'na, that if she was eating truma because she had a son, v'nivel al over kochavim v'eved, and she had relations with an over kochavim or an eved, afilu ein lazer, even if there were no children, nifsala, she's pasul. The lo nafgalon mi kohenes, that we wouldn't learn from kohenes. The kedamrin al kohenes he the kaddish gufa v'chulu. We said because the kohenes, her actual body is actually holy, so that wouldn't be learned out. But again, that would mean really that the pasuk is coming to teach us a chumrah that an ovid kochavim and an eved actually pasul. And the Gemara continues, Rabbi Akiva do amar ein kiddushin tovsin b'chayvei lavin. Now, according to the sheet of Rabbi Akiva, we've seen this earlier in the Masechta, Rabbi Akiva holds kiddushin does not take effect, that is not chal, even by chayvei lavin, even in a situation where it's not kares, where it's just a lav. If they would have a relationship and try to have kiddushin, the kiddushin would not take effect. And according to Rabbi Akiva, what do you have to say? Umay kisihiyeh le'ishzor. What does it mean that if she is with a non-kohen, she can't have truma? So that has to be kisibol. It has to be that she just has relations with him, because there is no kiddushin that's going to be chal. You're not going to take the word sihiyeh to mean actual havaya. It just means relations. So according to Rabbi Akiva, the Gemara asks, almona ugrusha lamali. According to Rabbi Akiva, so why do you have this? Why do you have to have this phrase of almona ugrusha? Remember, we said above that almona and grusha indicates that we're talking about some kind of relationship where there is kiddushin. But according to Rabbi Akiva, there is never kiddushin. Rashi over here explains. Well, Rabbi Akiva do amar ein kiddushin tovsin la'adam pasul. Rabbi Akiva says that if she has relations with an adam pasul, there's never going to be kiddushin, even if it's just a lav. When it says kisiya, it doesn't mean marriage. It can't be telling us, it's not coming to tell us that the bia only passes by somebody who in theory can have kiddushin. Because there's no kiddushin according to Rabbi Akiva for a psul. So therefore, what does Rabbi Akiva have to say? And now this word kisiya, if it is coming to tell us a problem when she has bia with someone who's pasul, you have to understand the word siya as just meaning to say relations. And what must it mean? It must mean that anybody who's forbidden to her, anyone who she's not allowed to have bia with, is going to pasul even an ovid kochavim and an eved. So according to that, almona ugrusha lashmin on ovid kochavim v'eved lamali. You don't need almona ugrusha to teach us that. In other words, the Gemara had understood that the word almona ugrusha comes to teach us that an ovid kochavim and an eved passes her from truma. But according to Rabbi Akiva, that's automatically understood in the pasuk. It means to say any kind of relationship with someone who's pasul, any kind of relations rather with somebody who's pasul, is going to create a problem, and that would automatically include ovid kochavim and eved, and so almona and grusha become extra. And so the Gemara answers that according to Rabbi Akiva, almona lahachmir aleh, the reason why almona is written in the pasuk again, even though it's implied automatically, it's to make a stringency on her. Ugrusha, and the reason why grusha is written in the pasuk lahakil aleh, that's in order to make a leniency on her. And the Gemara continues and explains, utzricha, we need them both. The Iyashmin and Almana, because if we only had Almana, we would say Almana hu dechiles lo zera achla. We would say by an Almana when she doesn't have children. So in that situation, she can eat truma when she returns to her father's house. Mishum dechazi lakuna, because she's still somebody who is fit to marry a Kohen. A widow is not allowed to marry a Kohen Gadol, but can marry a Kohen. But let's say you had a situation where the woman was divorced, and as a divorcee is not allowed to marry a Kohen. So then I might say, Afagav de les lozera, even though she has no children, lo achla, maybe I would say that the grusha would never be allowed to eat truma at that point in time once she's divorced from the non-Kohen. Maybe we would say, no, she doesn't return to her father's house and eat truma, because as a grusha, as a divorcee, she's not allowed to eat truma, and that's why we write grusha lahakil aleh to say, no, the grusha is allowed to return when she doesn't have children, return to her father's house and have truma. V'yashmin and grusha, and the other way around we would say, if it only had grusha, I would say grusha hu dechi isla zera lo achla, only by a grusha when she has children, then we say she cannot eat, mishum de lo chazi lakuna, because also she's not fit to kahuna anyway, because a divorcee can't marry a Kohen. Aval almona de chazi lakuna, but an almona who's fit to marry a Kohen, ema, then I might say, alfagav de isla zera, even though she had children with the non-Kohen, nami teichel, still she is allowed to eat from the, still she's allowed to eat truma, return to her father's house. So tzricha Shlicha, so that's why we say that you have to write both Almana and Grusha. It's for their own cases to say that you shouldn't be too machmir or shouldn't be too mekel in either one of the cases. And the Gemara continues, Ve'ema nivala lepasula. Why don't we say as follows? When we say that if she has relations with somebody who is pasul, so we should say af machzir grushaso. Another person who is pasul to a woman is a machzir grushaso. Let's say a woman divorces a husband, and then she marries someone in the interim, so then the husband becomes pasul to her. So we should say that this halacha, that if she has relations with somebody that's pasul to her, she becomes pasul to kahuna, that should apply even to her own husband in a situation of machzir grushaso, but we don't say that. And to that the Gemara says very simply, we learn that from the pasuk. Leish zar amar achmana. Pasuk says to a man who is a stranger, and it means to say misha zar etzla meikar. It's only when she has relations with somebody she's puzzled to who was a stranger to her from the beginning. Leafuke hai de lo zar etzla meikarahu. But this guy, meaning her husband, he was not a zar in the beginning. It was her husband. Now it became aser because he divorced her and she married someone in the interim. So there we don't say that halach applies, that if she was nivala in a situation of machzir grushaso, we don't say that she becomes puzzled to kahuna. But the Gemara continues, Ihachi if so, cholol delav zarhu meikara lo lifsol. What about a cholol? There's no iser for a cholol to have relations with a kohenes. So therefore, if a kohenes has relations with a cholol, why does that passel her from truma? There should be no psul. We know it does passel her, but why should it passel her if a cholol is not really a psul? And so to that the Gemara says, Amar Kra, because the pasuk says, Lo yechalil zaru ba'amav. It says that he shouldn't make his children into chalolim. And what we understand from there is makish zaro lo. We actually compare the children to him, mahu posel, just like he creates a psul. That pasuk is written in a situation of an almana l'kohen gadol. So in that relationship, in that case, the kohen gadol does create a psul with the almana because of that pasuk relationship, and then he creates this din of cholol in the children. But we compare that and we say, af zaro nami posel. So too, if she would have a relationship with the children, meaning the kohenes were to have a relationship with a cholol, that also passes her going forward from kahuna and from truma. But the Gemara continues, Ve'ema mishas havaya. Why don't we say that the Isser actually takes place from the moment of Kiddushin? In other words, if you have a situation, they wouldn't have to have relations. The woman doesn't have to have relations with the person she's puzzled to. Even when they just have a Kiddushin together, that should be enough to passel her from Truma and from Kahuna going forward. And to that, the Gemara says, no, Dumya de Kohen Gadol ba'almana. We compare it to the case, that's like the prototypical case of a Kohen Gadol with an almana. Ma Kohen Gadol be'almana bebiya, just like, and we're going to see in Rashi why, but just like by a Kohen Gadol with an almana, it's only when they actually have relations. So in all cases, the psul only happens when there's actual relations. And the Gemara says, maybe there has to be both. Maybe there should be havaya kiddushin and there should be a bia. And to that the Gemara again says, Dumya de Kohen Gadol ba'almana. No, it's similar to Kohen Gadol with an almana. Ma Kohen Gadol ba'almana bebiya lechuda. Just like by Kohen Gadol with an almana, the psul happens just with bia. Afainami bebiya lechuda. So too by all the psulim, it only happens with just bia, not with havaya as well. Rashi over here explains, since the pasuk says sihiyah, mishas havaya, we should say right from the moment of havaya. Ikidesh psula sa'isha, psula olamis. If someone who's pasul has a kiddushin with a woman, that pasels her forever. Even if he dies, it's as if they had relations. Maybe they don't have to actually have relations to create the psul. And again, the Gemara answers, no, Kohen Gadol bebiyahu the pasul. We know by a Kohen Gadol, it's only bia that creates the pasul. K'nechsiv, lo yechalel zaro kishayesh zera achilo. When there is zera, when there is seed, then it has a din of cholol. V'achinami tanan b'habal Yevamot. That's also earlier in the Mishnah. Nisar malu o nisgarshu min hanisuin psulos min ha'eris and ksherus. It says min hanisuin. It indicates that it's only with relations, it's only with bia that there actually is a psul. And now the Gemara returns to two shitas in the Brisa. Earlier was the shita of Rabbi Yossi and also the shita of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Rashi over there said the Gemara would address those two opinions, and that is what the Gemara does right now. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi says, Kol shazaro pasul posel, any relationship where the child is going to be pasul, so that pasels the woman from kahuna. V'chol she'ein zaro pasul eino pasul, but if the child's not pasul, then the woman is not pasul from kahuna and from truma. And so the Gemara asks, Ma'ika ben Tanakama le Rabbi Yossi, what's the difference between the Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi? According to the Tanakama also, all of these cases created a psul in the child. So what really is the difference? difference? And the Gemara answers, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Mitzri Sheni ve'edomi Sheni ika beinayu. The difference is, let's say you have a second generation Egyptian converts or a second generation Edomi converts. So in those cases, the third generation already is not puzzled. The halach is the third generation is allowed to enter the community of Klal Yisrael. So that would be a situation where there would actually be a machlokus between Tanakam and Rabbi Yossi, because again, Rabbi Yossi would say this is not a case of Zaro puzzle, and therefore the woman is not puzzled as well. Rashi over here says, Mitzri Sheni puzzle v'zaro kosher. A Mitzri Sheni is puzzled to come into the community, but the children are actually kosher. L'Tanakama kevan to puzzle posla bebia. According to Tanakama, since the Mitzri Sheni himself is puzzle, so that puzzles her with bia. The Rabbi Yossi lo puzzle, and according to Rabbi Yossi, there is no psul. And so the Gemara continues, okay, we have a machlokus, but what is the machlokus based upon? So the Gemara says, Ushneim lo lamdu elam mikohen gadol ba'almana. Both of them, meaning the Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi, they're really both learning from kohen gadol and almana. They just learn different things. Tanakama, so the Tanakama holds my kohen gadol ba'almana, just like when you have a relationship of a kohen gadol with an almana, which is a puzzle relationship. Shebiyaso ba'averu posel, the bia is a transgression and it creates a psul. Afainami posel, so too here. A mitzri sheni, a domi sheni, it's a bia that is puzzle, it creates a psul. Rabbi Yossi suffer, but Rabbi Yossi holds no. Kohen Gadol has to be compared to the Kohen Gadol case. Ma Kohen Gadol shezaro paselu posel. Just like by the Kohen Gadol, the child is pasel and she becomes pasel. Again, she becomes pasel through the bia with the Kohen Gadol. Afkol shezaro pasel posel. So too, and it has to be a case where the child is pasel to create the psul in the woman. La'afuke mitzri sheni, that comes to exclude mitzri sheni. De'ein zaro pasel. The child of the mitzri sheni, the third generation, is no longer pasel. Techsev, like the pasuk says, bonim asher yivoldu lahem dor shlishi yavo lahem bekal Hashem. It says those children that are born in the third generation, they can enter the community of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. This is the opinion here of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, Omer Kol Shata no se bito. He says the rule is as follows: any situation where you can marry this person's daughter, ata no se almanuso, so then you can marry the almana, the widow, v'chulu, etc. So again, that also seems very similar to Reb Yossi, because the daughter is the child. Sounds like if the child is mutter, so then it's going to be okay. But if the child's not mutter, it's not okay. So the Gemara asks, Ma'ika bein Reb Yossi Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. What's the difference between Reb Yossi and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel? It seems identical. It goes by whether the child is kosher or not. And so the Gemara answers very simply, Amar Ula says, Ger Amoni uMoavi Ika Beinayu. The difference is, let's say you have a convert who's an Amoni or a Moavi. Rashi over here says, first, Kol Sha'ata Kohen no se bito. If a Kohen can marry the daughter of this relationship, so Ata Kohen no se almanu, so then the Kohen can also marry the widow of this relationship. And so the Gemara says the difference is as follows, Ger Amoni hu uveno uven beno atsofa olam psul. And the halacha is, when it comes to an Ammoni convert, so he, his son, and all male children are all problematic forever. Avol bito kshera, but the halacha is his daughter is actually kshera. The kaimolon Ammoni v'lo Ammonis, because the halacha is an Ammoni is a problem to marry into the community of Klal Yisrael, but an Ammonis is not a problem. And so therefore, that's the nafkamina. Rabbi Yossi, the tali taima b'chol shezaro pasul, according to Rabbi Yossi, who says it's dependent on the children being pasul. So ho v'yesh bezaro pasul. Here also the children are pasul, the males, and therefore pasul's the woman. Well, Rabbi Shimon, the tali taima bebito lo pasul, but according to Rabbi Shimon, who says that it's all dependent on the daughter specifically, so it's not going to be pasul. That's what Ula means. Again, Amar Ula ger Amoni Moavi ika beinayu. The difference is if you have the ger Amoni and Moavi, and again that's the nafkamino. Shneim lo lamdu elami kohen gadol ba'almana, and both of them again are really learning it out from the case of kohen gadol with an almana. Rabbi Yossi savar ma kohen gadol ba'almana shezaro pasul uposel. Rabbi Yossi says the kohen gadol with an almana, the children are pasul sir. Afkol shezaro pasul. So to any case, including ger Amoni and Moavi, any case where the children are pasul is going to create a psul. Rav Shimon Gamliel savar ma kohen gadol ba'almana shekol zaro pasul uposel. Rav Shimon Gamliel says, no, a kohen gadol with an almana, all the children are pasul and it creates a psul. Af shekol zaro pasul uposel, so too it has to be that all the children are pasul to create a psul. La'afuke Amoni uMoavi, that comes to exclude an Amoni and Moavi. De'ein kol zaro pasul. There we say not all the children are pasul. The Amar Marcos, the master said, Amoni v'lo Amonis, Moavi v'lo Moavis. It says only the male Amoni and only the male Moavi are a problem to marry into the community of Klal Yisrael. But the Ammonis and the Moavis, the female, it's not a problem. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ha'ones v'hamefata v'hashota. Let's say you have a situation of rape, or a situation where a man seduces the woman, or a situation of a shota. A shota is an imbecile who does not have any das. So the halacha is lo poslin. The relationship with them does not create a psul. V'lo ma'achilin, but also the relationship with them does not allow her to eat from truma. Now Rashi over here says, V'ashota afilu al yedei chuppah v'kiddushin. When we're talking about shota, that means even if there's a chuppah and kiddushin, still lo posel, number one, that's not going to create a psul. V'lo ma'achil, and also that's not enough of a kinyan, or it's not a relationship that can allow her to eat truma. Point being, the ain kinyan, no kinyan. The point is that the kinyan is not a kinyan. Again, the same thing also by ones and mefata. These cases will be explained a little further in the Gemara, but ones, mefata, and shota, they're not going to passel a woman from having truma, and it's also, the relationship with them is not going to allow the woman to eat truma. V'im einon ru'uyin lavo b'Yisrael. Now, if you have a situation where additionally they have a situation where they are people that are not allowed to enter the community of Klal Yisrael, so then harei elu poslan. Then actually it does create a psul. And Rashi over here says harei elu poslan shari neschalala bebias pasala, because over there already she had bia with somebody who was pasal. Then she becomes a chalala, and then it actually does pasal her from truma. And now the Mishnah continues. Ketzad, how so? Harei Yisrael shabal bas kohen. Let's say you have a situation of a Yisrael and he's together with a bas kohen. So the halach is tocha b'truma. The halach is she can eat truma. Rashi over here says harei Yisrael shabal bas kohen. In other words, she was a bas kohen before she ever had a relationship. She was eating truma as a bas kohen. Now the Yisrael has relations with her. She can continue to eat truma. As Rashi over here says, ba'ones o b'pitoy. The case is that the Yisrael has relations with the bas kohen. Either he rapes her or it's a situation of seduction. Shelo l'shem kiddushin. It's not for the purpose of marriage. That does not mess her up. The fact that she had, that's what it means in the first part of the Mishnah. When it talks about ones and mefata, if the Yisrael is the ones or mefata with the bas kohen can continue to eat truma. That's what it means, tocha b'truma. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Tes Amud Beis.